Okay, so once again, good morning everyone. Our topic for today is about project procurement management. No? So when we say procurement, no, it means that acquiring goods and or services from outside source. No? Because the term procurement is widely used in government and many private companies use the terms purchasing and outsourcing. So in the government, they were using procurement, but in the private companies, the term used is purchasing and outsourcing. Organizations or individuals who provide procurement services are referred to as suppliers, vendors, contractors, subcontractors, or sellers, with suppliers being the most widely used term. So many information technology projects involve the use of goods and services from outside the organization. Okay, for us to give us more details about project procurement management, let us all welcome Sir Edgar Salas. Take it away, sir.
Na nakikita na po yung share screen?
Yes.
Good morning, Dean Marmelo. Good morning, classmates. Today I will present to you Project Procurement Management. Project Procurement Management includes the processes necessary to purchase or acquire products, services, or results needed from outside the project teams. It also includes the contract management and change control process required to develop and administer contracts or purchase orders issued by authorized project team members. Importance of project procurement management. Procurement means acquiring goods and services from an outside source. The term procurement is widely used in government. Many private companies use the term purchasing and outsourcing. Organizations or individuals who provide procurement services are referred to as suppliers, vendors, contractors, subcontractors, or sellers. Of these terms, suppliers is the most widely used. Many IT projects involve the use of goods and services from outside the organization. The Project Management Institute defines an outside source as a source outside the project team. So the same organization can be a supplier to the project team, or the project team can be a supplier to another group in the organization. In fact, many IT departments in organizations are in direct competition with outside vendors, and they are subject to the same kind of requirement definition, statement of work, and bids. The rules and methods of sound project procurement practices are good to follow regardless of who provides the services to whom. Once you're ready to procure goods from vendor, project procurement management is broken down into four processes. First is plan procurement management. Identify what external resources you'll need and send out a statement of work detailing your needs. Second, conduct procurement. When you get bids in from contractors, analyze them and decide which are the best for the product. Control procurement. Manage the contracts hard and monitor their work to make sure they are keeping with their schedule. Close procurement. Have a detailed process to make sure contracts have been fulfilled and closed properly. Plan purchases and acquisitions. The purpose of the plan purchases and acquisitions process is to identify which project needs can best be met by purchasing and acquiring products, services, or results outside the project organization. This process involves consideration of whether, how, what, how much, and when to acquire. When the project obtains products, services, and results acquired for project performance from outside the performing organization, the processes from planned purchases and acquisitions through contract closure are performed for each item to be purchased and acquired. The planned purchases and acquisitions process encompasses the consideration of potential vendors, particularly if the buyer likes to exercise some degree of influence or control over contracting decisions. Emphasis should also be given to who is responsible for obtaining or holding any relevant permits and professional licenses that may be required by legislation, regulation, or organizational policies in executing the project. The project schedule is a key input to create planned purchases and acquisition process. Decisions made in developing the procurement management plan can also influence the project schedule and are integrated with schedule development, activity resource estimating, and make or buy decisions. Plan contracting. This process prepares the documents needed to support the request seller, responses process, and select sellers processes. Plan contracting tools and techniques. Standard form. First, standard contracts, standard descriptions of procurement items, non-disclosure agreements, proposal evaluation criteria checklist are standardized version of all parts of the needed bid documents are included in standard forms. Organizations that perform substantial amounts of procurement can have many of these documents standardized. Buyer and seller organizations performing intellectual property transactions ensure that non-disclosure agreements are approved and accepted before disclosing any project-specific intellectual property information to other party. Second, procurement text documents. These documents are used to seek proposals from prospective sellers. A theme such as proposal is generally used when other considerations such as technical skills or technical approach are paramount, and terms such as bid, tender, or quotation is generally used when the seller selection decision will be based on price, as when buying commercial or standard items. However, the terms are often used interchangeably and care is taken not to make unwarranted assumptions and about the implications of the term used. Common names for different types of procurement documents include invitation for bid, request for proposal, request for quotation, tender notice, invitation for negotiation, and contractor initial response. Requesting seller responses. The request seller responses process is when a project manager obtains the quotation bids and proposals from the vendor. The vendor responses should include how the project performance can be reached and the cost associated. Just remember, there needs to be time for the vendors to generate proposals. The inputs into the process are first, organizational process assets are the plans, processes, policies, procedures, and knowledge bases specific to and used by the performing organization. Second, procurement management plan details how to manage the procurement. It is good to refer to this and inform the prospective vendors of your internal process. Procurement documents are the are from the plan contracting process which describe how the sales response should be presented, provide details about the required product, service, or result. Basically, these are guidelines for bids or proposals to your organization. Requesting seller responses will help assure willing capable sellers are approached for a proposal. At the end of the request seller responses process, you should have the following outputs. Qualified seller list is a list of vendors who are being asked to submit a proposal. Procurement document package is instructions for how the vendor is to respond to the proposal. Proposals are seller's prepared response, which details how the seller will deliver the required product, service, or result. Proposals are considered a formal and legal response to the buyer's request. Sometimes these are followed by on-site vendors' presentations. Selecting sellers. Selected sellers are part of the project management process interactions. It is part of the conduct procurement, a process of obtaining seller responses, selecting a seller, and awarding a contract in a project management. Source selection criteria are often included as part of the procurement documents. Select sellers, tools and techniques. Weighing system. The method for qualifying qualitative data to minimize the effect of personal prejudice on the seller section is called weighing system. Most such systems involve assigning a numerical weight to each of the evaluation criteria, rating the prospective sellers on each criterion, multiplying the weight by the rating and totaling the resultant products to compute an overall score. Independent estimates. The independent estimates is sometimes referred to as a should cost estimate, which the procuring organization can either prepare on its own or have an independent estimate of the cost as a check on proposed pricing for many procurement items. Significant differences from this cost estimate can be an indication that the contract statement of work was not adequate, that the prospective seller either misunderstood or failed to respond fully to the contract statement of work, or that the marketplace changed. Screening system. Establishing minimum requirements of performance for one of the evaluation criteria are involved in the screening system that can employ a weighing system and dependent estimates. For example, a prospective seller might be required to propose a project manager for had who had specific qualification before the remainder of the proposal would be considered. These screening systems are used to provide a weighing weighted ranking from the best to worst for all sellers who submitted a proposal. Contract negotiation. In order to reach to a mutual agreement prior to signing the contract, structure and requirements of the contract are clarified in contract negotiation. Final contract language reflects all agreements reached. Subjects covered include responsibilities and authorities, applicable terms and law, technical and business management approaches, proprietary rights, contract financing, technical solution, overall schedule payment and price. Contract negotiation conclude with a document that can be signed by both buyer and seller, or the contract can be a revised offer by the seller or or a counter offer by the buyer. For complex procurement item contract, negotiation can be independent process with inputs, an issue or open item list, and outputs documented decisions of its own. For simple procurement items, the terms and conditions of the contract can be fixed and non-negotiable and only need to be accepted by the seller. Administering the contract. The contract administration process helps to assure the project's goal and need are on track and on schedule, and the seller is behaving appropriately. The administration process is a part of monitoring and controlling process. Tools and techniques of contract administration. Once you have been able to get through the selection acquisition phase, the project manager needs to track administrative issues, contract changes, and the seller's progress and quality of work to assure that the project is running smoothly. The tools and techniques for administration process are contract change control system. A contract change control system defines the procedures for changing a contract. It encompasses all forms documented communications, tracking systems, and dispute resolution procedures. Additionally, approval levels are necessary to authorize changes and the procedures for getting the changes approved within the performing organization. Buyer conducted performance review. A buyer conducted performance review tracks the vendor's progress in execution and product delivery within contractual parameters. Hopefully, your organization is including the cost and project schedule in the contract. The purpose is to manage contract performance by recognizing performance success and failures, anticipated completion on the contract statement of work, and finally, identify areas of contract non-compliance. Inspections and audits. Inspection and audits identify any defects in the delivered work or product. Project managers assure inspections are conducted and audits occur with the live event of a new process or inspection, or inspect new procedures. Performance reporting. Performance reporting involves gathering the vendor's performance data and distributing it to the stakeholders. Performance reporting can help to alert management on whether the vendor is meeting contractual objectives. Payment system. Payment systems are tools and claims administration processes used for contract administration. The buyer uses payment system to compensate the vendor according to contract terms. Payment system include project management teams, reviews and approvals. Larger projects may have individual payment system. Claims administration. Claims administration revolves claims according to the contract's dispute resolution procedures. When the buyer and seller cannot resolve a claim on their own, claims administration documents, processes, monitors, and manages claims during the life of the contract, usually according to the contract terms. Records Management System. A record management system is a set of processes, related control functions, and automation tools which are used to manage contract documentation and records. Project managers use records management system to manage contract documentation and records, to keep an index of contract documents and correspondence, and for help with retrieving, accessing, and archiving that documentation. Information technology. Information technology makes contract administration more effective by providing electronic data exchange between the buyer and seller, and automating portions of certain systems and processes. Using information technology automates parts of the records management system, payment system, claims administration, or performance reporting. Closing the contract. Contract addresses each contact applicable to the project or a project phase. It supports the closed project process as it involves verification that all work and deliverables were acceptable. The contract closure process also involves administrative activities such as updating records to reflect final results and archiving such information for future use. In multi-phase project, the theme of contract may only be applicable to the phase of project. Unresolved claims may be subject to litigation after contract closure. Early termination of a contract can result from mutual agreement of the parties or from the default of one of the parties. The rights and responsibilities of the parties in the event of an early termination are contained in a terminations clause of the contract based upon those contracts or a portion of the project for clause or convenience at any time. The buyer may have to compensate the seller for seller's preparations and for any completed and accepted work related to the terminated part of the contract as per those contract terms and conditions. Using software to assist in PPM. Sophisticated procurement management software will result in the improved financial performance of an organization. Constructive purchase process and proper control over processes vital for business progress. It eliminates redundant tasks in organizations, streamlining the company's workforce efforts. These are my references. Thank you for listening. That's all.
Okay, so as what our presenter discussed, no, or mentioned that I have problem with my. Yun. Okay. So again, when we say procurement management, as what we discussed earlier, no? So procurement or purchasing or outsourcing is acquiring goods and or services from an outside source. No? Now, So under procurement, of course, we have planned procurement. So it identifies which project needs can be best met by acquiring products and services from outside the project organization versus those that can accomplish by the project team. The planned procurement involves consideration of whether to procure, how to procure, what to procure, how much to procure, and when to procure. Now, make or buy analysis. So it is important to use to determine whether a particular product can be produced by the performing organization. Analysis should include both indirect and direct costs, prospective as well as the immediate needs of the performing organization. So for example, whether a capital goods item can be used for other current or future projects of the organization or ongoing need of the item. Additional capacity is available for use within the organization. Propriety or business critical activity, which is core business for the company. Or of course, designing of chips in a chip manufacturing company. Of course, in contract type selection, we need to identify the definition of products, the risk of buyer, risk of seller, and type of payment. So we need to identify if fixed price, cost reimbursable, or time and materials. So our presenter discussed about different types of contracts. Now, it includes cost plus percentage fee, cost plus fixed fee, cost plus guaranteed maximum, cost plus guaranteed maximum insured savings, cost plus incentives, cost and cost sharing, fixed price or lump sum, no? Fixed price with redetermination, fixed price incentive fee, fixed price with economic price adjustment, fixed price incentives with successive targets, fixed price for services, materials, labor at costs, no? Purchase orders, blanket agreements, no? Time and material, labor hours only, bonus penalty, combination, and joint venture. Important fixed price contracts, no? Fixed price or lump sum, contractor performs the work for negotiated value. If estimated target cost is low, profit for seller may be low or even nil. Lowest risk to the buyer, higher risk to the seller. Usually, requires a long period of preparation of bids, especially in the government. No? Also, buyers include many contingency provisions to protect their interest. So, done only when the product is very well defined. Subsequent changes made might lead to trouble and sometimes considerable expenses. That this will be the fixed price or lump sum. For fixed price incentive fee, allows for adjustment of the total profit by a formula that depends on the final total cost at the completion of the project. There is an incentive to be to the seller to decrease costs. We have also what we call fixed price with redetermination. So prospective allows for future negotiation of some fixed prices, contracts, and specified times. When we say retroactive, allows for adjustment, no? Allows for adjustment of contract price after performance has been completed. And we have fixed price with economic price adjustment. It allows for price increases if the contract is for multiple years. For example, to account for inflation. And all cost reimbursement, reimbursable contracts require that the seller books be audited. For the cost plus fixed fee, cost may vary but the fee remains the same. Provides incentives to the contractor for early completion of the job. Okay. So for cost plus percentage cost, not prepared, no? Because there is no incentive for the seller to control cost. Is illegal in several companies and countries, no? Yung cost plus percentage of cost. Cost plus incentive fee, same as cost plus contracts, except that this have provision of adjustment of the fee that compares the total project cost to the target cost. Usually used for a long term, no? for a research development contracts. Procurement management plan, it describes how the remaining procurement process from developing procurement documents to contract closure will be managed and includes. So what are the content of procurement management plan? We need to consider the types of contract to be used, persons who prepared independent estimates and when action taken by the procurement department and the project team, sources of standardized procurement documents, methods to manage multiple providers, and the ways to coordinate procurements with the other aspect of the project. In conducting procurements, it involves receipt of bids or proposal from the sellers and application of the evaluation criteria to select a seller. So tools and techniques are used, bidder conferences, proposal evaluation techniques, independent estimates, expert judgment, advertising, internet research, procurement negotiation. So what will be the important outputs for that? Of course, the possible output is the procurement contract award and selected seller. In administering procurements, we need to ensure that the seller's performance meet procurement requirements. It includes application of appropriate project management processes to the contractual relationship and integration of the outputs from these processes into the overall management of the project. Important tools and techniques, of course, contract change control system, monitoring performance, including the performance reporting, procurement performance review, inspection, and audits. Then, of course, managing payment includes payment system, claims administration, and record management system. And the output for administered procurement is the procurement documentation, change requests, updates to project management, and plan organization process asset. For the closed procurements, we need to verify that all work and deliverables from the contract are acceptable. We need to double check. Early termination of the contract is a special case of procurement closure. So what are the tools and techniques for closed procurements? Procurement audits, negotiated settlements, and records and management system. And the output, of course, is the closed procurement, organizational process, asset updates. Now, again, the procurement management is the basic knowledge and skills of a project manager. Should include being able to help create, read, and manage contracts. We need to assume that you have a closing working relationship with departments such as procurement and legal, and the procurement process cannot occur without your involvement. So a formal process to obtain goods and services is known as procurement. Procurement management plan, procurement statement of work, procurement documents, change requests, additional procurement documentation, and lesson learned are the outputs of procurement management process. The procurement department is the most common name for the department that handles a controls procurement. So in some companies, this department is also called contracting, purchasing, or legal departments. A few skills required for managing procurements include possessing legal knowledge. So you have, especially in the government, you need to know the technicality. You need to possess a legal background. You need to have a negotiation skills and understanding procurement process. In case of a project requiring to buy goods or services, the procurement department comes into action. A project manager is expected to understand what procurement expert will need from them. So a project manager is expected to understand what procurement expert will need for them, again, for the expert with that information. And the work with the procurement department throughout the life of the procurement. Post the decision of procuring goods or services, the procurement manager should facilitate to create a procurement management plan, create procurement statement of work, determine type of contract. So we stated a while ago a different type of contracts. You need also to determine the procurement document, request for proposal, invitation for bid, especially in the government, prior to a bill, the products or services. In government agency, they are required to have a bidding. Request for quotation. So send the documents to the seller, then seller reviews the documents, seeks additional informations if needed, no? Send required documents. Negotiation takes place with the seller and contract is signed with right seller. Procurement administration is the next step. Then monitoring and control procurement administration done. So procurement closure involves procurement audit and lesson learned. Then final payment is made. Okay. So important points related to procurement management. Again, contracts cannot be informal. No, it requires formality. All project management requirements should be specifically stated, no, in the contract. A change management procedure, no, is the only way to include any activity in the contract if that activity is not already in the contract. Contracts are legally binding. The seller has no choice but to perform as agreed in the contract. No? Contract help mitigate project risk. No? The most government contracts fall with their jurisdiction by providing a court system for dispute resolution. So what are the project manager's rule again in procurement? A project manager should be able to read and understand the contracts. A project manager should ensure that scope of work and project management requirements should be included in the contract. Identify risk and create appropriate risk response plans for the risk mitigation. The project manager should tailor, no, the contract to the unique needs of the project. The project manager should be involved during contract negotiation to maintain the relationship with the seller. So as project manager, you need to be present during the contract negotiations. The project manager should protect the integrity of the contract. The project manager should ensure all works such as reporting, inspection, and legal deliverables are met. The release of liens and ownership of materials is another critical activity of the project manager. The project manager works with the procurement manager to manage changes to the contract. No? So we have what we call centralized and decentralized contract as what we discussed earlier. In centralized contracting environment, there is one procurement department and a procurement manager handles multiple procurement for different projects. When we say decentralized contracting environment, a procurement manager is assigned to one project full-time and reports directly to the project manager. So I think that's it for the topic under project procurement management in our project management discussion.